is true what they say. You really never will beat the Irish. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife, and today I am taking you through all of the Irish books that I think you should check out coming out between now and the end of June. I really love Irish literature. I am a huge champion of my own country, and I want to dispel the rumor that there's not a whole lot in Irish literature. There is genuinely something for every single reading taste in this list that I've got for you. Let's already get started with some of the books that have already come out by this stage. Already come out on the 6th of February is Moving On by Roisin Meany. This book is about Ellen, and it takes place in the 1980s and 1990s. Ellen leaves her tiny little hometown and heads to the city of Galway. She's looking for a brand new start, and she starts living with her Aunt Frances and works in a local bookshop. Here is where she meets Ben, and they have this huge connection right from the moment that they've met one another. But Ellen's friend Claire has got bigger dreams for the two of them. It was originally intended that Claire was going to come to Galway and to join Ellen, but Claire wants to cast the nest a little bit further away. So the two of them actually end up in London. And here, Ellen really makes a name for herself. She starts looking into different careers and harvesting her creativity and working in a copywriting agency. And here is where she also meets with Leo. He is a banker working in the city, and they just can't get enough of one another. But in the back of her mind is always Danny. Danny was her childhood best friend, and when Ellen moved away from the area, they kind of lost touch with one another. As a chance encounter, they've actually seen each other on the streets of Galway, and they've rekindled their friendship. But Ellen is desperate for something more to come from it, and she just cannot get Danny out of her head. This is going to be the first Roisin Meany book that I'm going to read, and I'm genuinely so excited about it, mainly because Galway is one of my favourite places in the entire country. Every time that somebody asks me where they should go in Ireland, I will kind of leave Dublin to the side and tell them that instead they should head out west to Galway. It's one of my favourite places, so reading a book that is set in the city is definitely going to make it special for me. Released on the 13th of February was May All Your Skies Be Blue by Fiona Scarlett. I have previously read Boys Don't Cry by this author, and it is genuinely heart-gripping and so emotional, and that is exactly the same treatment that I am expecting from her new book. This is about Shauna and Dean. They first meet each other in 1991 when Shauna moves to the area, and the two of them are inseparable. There is an electrifying chemistry between the two of them. And fast forward to current day, Shauna is working as the manager of the local hair salon, but she is truly not herself. We really get a look into what Shauna and Dean's relationship has evolved into and all of the steps that it took to get them there. I am so ready for Fiona Scarlett to break my heart in two once again, and I am so intrigued by what this story is going to be like. Released on February 18th is Nesting by Roisin O'Donnell. Roisin has got a name in Ireland as a short story writer, but this is her first full-length novel, and it is genuinely intriguing. It's about Ciara, who has had enough of her abusive relationship, and one day, while the washing is on the line, she grabs herself and her two daughters and the bag that she has had ready and packed with weeks and heads off. She doesn't look back, and she doesn't take a second glance at everything. But as they are on the road and the money starts to dwindle and things start to get a little bit more difficult, Ciara really starts to question her decision and whether or not leaving Ryan was actually the best decision for her and her two daughters. I'm really intrigued by how Ciara is going to reshape and restructure her life and get back to herself, and this is a story I am genuinely interested in reading. Released on the 27th of February is The Stolen Child by Carmel Harrington. This is following the Murphy family. In 1981, their 2.5-year-old son Robert went missing while they were on a cruise in Barcelona. And now, in the current day, their younger daughter Lily is working as a therapist. Jason, the father of the family, is so hell-bent on finding out what happened to Robert and getting the truth about what happened, whereas his wife Kimberly has kind of just been living with the situation as it is. One day, a new client walks into Lily's therapy room. His name is Zach, and he is American, and he has just seen an interview that Jason has given on national TV about the Stolen Child agency that he is working with and all of the steps that he has taken to find Robert, because Zach thinks that he might have some answers as to what's happened. What happens in this book then is an entire unfolding of all of the secrets of the past, of all of the things that have gotten us to where we are now. and maybe that you shouldn't trust everybody who is in the same room as you. Fast forward almost an entire month, coming out on March 20th is I Want to Go Home But I'm Already There by Roisin Lanigan. This is about Anya and Elliot. They have just moved in together to their first apartment, and it should be all roses, but Anya cannot shake the feeling that something is wrong. Her relationship with Elliot is kind of at an all-time low. Their upstairs neighbours are a little bit too quiet in the evenings. While she might be living in this most picturesque area with coffee shops and with yoga studios, she doesn't really feel settled and she doesn't really feel welcome in the area. And as much as she is trying to paper over the cracks in the walls that she has found, it's a lot harder to paper over the cracks in her and Elliot's relationship. Also coming out on the 20th of March is The Paris Express by Emma Donoghue. I love Emma Donoghue's work, whether it is her contemporary books or her historical fiction, and this one is very firmly in that second category. It is based on the true story of the train derailment in Montparnasse in 1875, and this isn't an area of history that I know a whole lot about, but I am so intrigued to see how it's going to be written. I absolutely love Emma Donoghue's writing style, so I know I'm in really safe hands with this story. Coming out on the 3rd of April is Fair Play by Louise Hegarty. This is Louise's debut novel, and it's a kind of a nod to all of the murder mysteries of the early 20th century. This is about a group of friends who have all gathered together in an Airbnb on New Year's Eve. They're here to celebrate Benjamin's birthday, and his sister Abigail has set up a kind of a murder mystery set in the jazz ages of the 1920s. But things really start to unravel over the night. Somebody kisses the wrong person at the party, somebody else gets their heart completely shattered, and the group decide to just leave it there. They're going to head to bed, lick their wounds, and come back the next morning and try and put the pieces back together. The following morning, everybody in the Airbnb wakes up except for Benjamin himself. Abigail is then left trying to determine what it was that caused her brother's death, if the culprit is still in the house, and how she's going to bring justice to her family. Coming out on the 10th of April is Show Me Where It Hurts by Claire Gleason. This is about Rachel, who has the idyllic life that she's always wanted. She lives in a beautiful home with her husband Tom and their 2 children. Everything is turned on its head one day, however, when Tom takes the family car, which contains Rachel and their 2 children, and tries to run it off the road in an attempt to end his own life. What follows is a story of how heartbreaking it can be living with somebody who is suffering through so many demons, and just how it can be to support them. This one is obviously going to touch a nerve with quite a few people and is going to come with quite a lot of trigger warnings, so do be sure that you have gone and checked those out before you go into this book for yourself. Also coming out on the 10th of April is Burn After a Reading by Catherine Ryan Howard. I absolutely loved 56 Days, so I have got pretty high hopes for this one. This is about Jack, who was hailed a hero when he ran into his burning house to try and save his wife, but unfortunately he was a little too late, as it was deemed that Kate was already dead by the time he'd even entered the house in the first place. Jack is trying to put pen to paper to tell his side of the story and to reveal what actually happened on that night, but he's never really been one for words and he's never been a writer. So he enlists the help of Emily, who is a ghostwriter that has her own secrets to tell. Coming out on April 15th is The Good Mistress by Anne Tiernan, and if that surname sounds familiar, then you are correct. Anne is the sister of the internationally famous comedian Tommy Tiernan, but I don't necessarily think that The Good Mistress is going to have all of the laughs that one of his comedy sets would have. This is about Erica, Juliet, and Maeve. All 3 of these women meet at Rory's funeral, and it turns out that all 3 of them have been romantically involved with him at the same time. One of them is a wife, one of them is a widow, and one of them is a mistress. All 3 of them come together to try and come to terms with the loss, and to also come to terms with the lies and the subterfuge that Rory had been putting them through for such a long time. But they start to bond together in a way that none of them really had expected, and their lives start to intertwine in very interesting ways. Coming out on April 22nd is Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Maria Griffin. If you love the musical The Little Shop of Horrors, this one is 100% for you. This is about Shelley, who sees a help wanted sign while she is out doing grocery shopping in a local shopping centre. She goes in and finds out that this is for a florist which is run by Neve. Neve decides to take Shelley on because she needs help a lot more than Shelley was expecting. Deep in the bowels of this mall is Baby. He is a sentient orchid and he has got a taste for human flesh. All that he wants to do is eat the ones he loves, namely Neve. And Shelley has been hired to keep him distracted. Coming out on the 8th of May is It Should Have Been You by Andrea Mara. This is about Susan, who is on maternity leave and feels like she is being bullied by Celeste in the town's local WhatsApp group. Susan takes to her sister's WhatsApp group and complains about Celeste to her three sisters. She tells them about Celeste's annoying children and the fact that she has seen Celeste's husband around town with another woman, looking a little bit more than friendly. However, she hasn't actually sent that to her sisters. She has instead sent that to the entire town in the wrong WhatsApp group. The next morning, Susan wakes up to learn that Celeste's husband and the woman that she had seen him around town with have both been found murdered. Another woman in another part of town has also been found dead, but this woman had the address of 26 Oak Park, exactly the same address as Susan. Is somebody out there trying to murder Susan but accidentally got the wrong house? Coming out on May 22nd is The Secret Life of Leinster House by Gavin Riley. Gavin Riley is one of the country's biggest political reporters, and he works for both Virgin Media and for Newstalk, so he's involved in both radio broadcasting and television work. In this book, Gavin is going to lift the lid on what actually happens inside Leinster House. This is the House of Parliament in Ireland, and he's going to tell everything about what happens during an election season, what it is like when the Dáil, which is the Irish Parliament, meets for the first time after an election, what the infamous Dáil Bar is actually like, and all of the secrets that are lying around the corridors of this house. I'm quite interested in politics, particularly in Irish politics, so this kind of little lifting the lid on what it's like in my own country's political system is something that is definitely speaking out to me. Coming out on June 3rd is Skip Shock by Caroline O'Donoghue. I have absolutely loved every book that I've read of Caroline so far, so this one is definitely in my sights for this year. This is about Margot and Moon. Margot is a troubled student and after the death of her father is moving away to a new city for boarding school. Moon is a travelling salesman and makes his living by travelling around an interconnected network of barely used train lines. Their paths should never have crossed, but one day on this fateful train, their paths do meet. And this train is a little bit more interesting than any other you've ever taken. If you travel north, time will speed up inexplicably. If you travel south, time will slow down perpetually. I am so intrigued to see what the effects of this kind of stretching time is going to be like, and also why it is that Margot and Moon should never have crossed paths in the first place. Coming out on June the 5th is Our Song by Anna Carey, and I am not just interested in this one because it is a Taylor Swift song. This is about Laura and Tig. They used to be in a band about 20 or so years ago, but Laura gave up that life because it just never seemed like a dream that was going to come true. However, it did come true for Tig, and he is now an internationally celebrated touring artist with so many platinum-selling albums under his belt. Tig gets back in touch with Laura one day and asks if they can put together the rest of a song that they started working on way back then. The issue is that when Laura left the band, she swore to herself that she would never have anything to do with Tig ever again. But maybe it's not just the music that deserves a second chance. Also coming out on June the 5th is Long Story by Vicky Notaro. This is about Tara and Alex. Tara is a super famous actress with Oscar nods and with a glittering life in LA, whereas Alex is living back in Ireland and is working as a super successful podcast host. When they were younger and in the same school together, they swore off one particular boy forever. They decided that was never going to come between the two of them. But now Sean's autobiography has come out and is detailing romances with both of them at separate points in his life. What is about to unfold is a dual narrative that takes place in Ireland and the US and kind of trying to put the pieces back together on their slightly shattering friendship. Coming out on June 12th is Thirst Trap by Grania O'Hare. This is Grania's debut novel and it is set in Belfast following the lives of three friends, Harley, Maggie and Rosha. They've all been living in a house share in the city and they are still grieving the death of one of their best friends, Lydia. Lydia's room is still untouched and the massive argument that they all had is still hanging around the air of the house. The house is crumbling just as much as everybody's friendship is and things are really starting to unravel now. I am always really interested in friendship groups and the kind of trials and tribulations that they go through. So this is a debut novel I am definitely going to be keeping an eye out for. Finally, coming out on the 19th of June is Before Dorothy by Hazel Gaynor. This is the story of Annie M from The Wizard of Oz and what had happened before Dorothy came into her life. Em has been living in the bright lights and big city of Chicago, but she has to leave all of that behind her when terrible news reaches her. Her sister has died in a freak accident, so Em needs to head back to the Kansas prairies and take care of her young daughter. All of this is going to accumulate in the story that we have known and loved for decades. And I am so intrigued to see what it was that made Aunt Em tick before we got to know her in The Wizard of Oz. Those are the Irish books coming out in the first half of 2025 that I think you definitely need to put onto your shelves. Have any of these really spoken to you, or is there an Irish author that you are particularly interested in trying this year? If you'd love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me any emoji that will remind you of Ireland. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.